A system with numbers and papers.
And lines and waiting. You work hard, get good grades, go to college.
I want to go to college. I got good grades.
I overachieved. Debt is good?
Yeah, it's so good.
So much debt. I can totally save up and buy a house and start a family.
Starting a family means you need 2 or 3 jobs.
You can't afford to buy. Oh,
You can. School is not designed to help you escape the matrix. If that was the case, the matrix would break down. School is designed to prepare your mind for slavery within the matrix. Most of you intrinsically understand this. Very simple spirit.
I've been working since I was 16 years old. I'm 32 years old now. I did everything right. I went to college and a bachelor's degree. I'm literally out of money. They want me to die poor.
This is the biggest scam!
Man, I know a lot of people feel like
I'm finna put y'all on. This what rich people don't want y'all to know.
Do the rich people cringe and say, don't tell them that, Rob?
Yes. Don't tell people what you know. Keep them poor. My father was the head of education, PhD, all that stuff. I go home and ask him, said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and said, because the government doesn't let us teach that subject. The government tells us what we can teach and what we can't teach. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job. I said, but you get a job to earn money. He goes, no, you're supposed to just get a job. I went, no. Isn't the purpose of a job to earn money? He goes, you're correct. I said, so why don't I just learn about money? I can skip the job part, And he got flustered and he said, if you want to learn about money, why don't you ask your best friend's father about money? And I said, why? That's Mike. So why ask him? He said, because Mike's father is an entrepreneur. And I said, what are you? He says, I'm an employee, I'm a government employee. I went, oh, what's the difference? He says, the difference is an entrepreneur must know about money, or they're no longer entrepreneurs. And he says, an employee doesn't have to know anything about money. The government will take care of them, the company will take care of them. So I'm all confused. But I took my dad's advice and I trundled over to Mike's father's office and knocked on his door and I said, hey, I'm here, 9 years old. Teach me about money. He says, beat it, kid, But that's where the story of Rich Dad Poor Dad started. And finally, through persistence, my rich dad started teaching me about money on one condition. And that condition was he would never pay me. He says, the moment I pay you, you think like an employee. He says, that's the trap. Entrepreneurs work for free. And now I'm 9 years old, my head's going cracking in half. He says, you never want a paycheck. You understand that, kid? I said, okay, I got it. And he said, well, how do I make money? He says, that's what entrepreneurs figure out. It's like, there's many formulas for great success in money. There's thousands of them.
Did y'all get that? Did y'all take notes? He really just put us on game and gave us the sauce. I'm just saying, if you got it, you got it. If you didn't, go replay it. Y'all let me know in the comments, did this rich man just put us on game or not? Like and follow for more wisdom and stay tuned. Follow me on YouTube if y'all want that exclusive content.
Did y'all understand what he was saying down below, chat?
And this is what the book said. History repeats itself in 80-year blocks called saeculum.
Okay, let's see what he's talking about.
History blocks. Not exactly 80 years. This is history, not math. But roughly the span of a human lifetime. Maybe 80 to 90 years. Within these 80-year history blocks, we have 4 turnings of around 20 years each. We usually call them generations. This book calls them turnings. Turnings are sort of like seasons, like spring, summer, fall, winter. Throughout our history, we've had these 80-year blocks, and the 80-year blocks have been remarkably similar to each other. We're in one now. The first turning, the first season, is a high, an upbeat era. The second turning is an awakening, a passionate era. The third turning is an unraveling, a downcast era. And the fourth turning, well, sorry, but fourth turnings suck.
Which one do you think?
The fourth turning is a crisis, an era of upheaval. We're in a fourth turning right now. So let's take a look at our saeculum, our history block, the history block that we're in the crisis of right now. Our high began after our World War II victory. By our, we mean America's. These are America's history blocks and turnings. During the high, the getting is good. We had the most even distribution of wealth during our high. You could work at a gas station and afford to buy a house. This high is the period that the MAGA hats refer.
You used to be able to buy a house for $7,500. You could work a
Man.
factory job and buy a house and sustain your family. Your wife would stay at home, raise your children. In a scenario where, you know what the government did? They're like, maybe we make things a little bit more expensive so that the wife can stay stay also at a job. And guess what? Guess who's going to raise the children? The system. Because if you control the future, you control the nation. So this one too.
We got Hank Williams and Elvis and Little Richard and the
$7,500 for a home, y'all. In the 1960s, it's crazy because a lot of elders who had good built homes at the times, homes are still, standing tall. They just need some type of reverberation going on with it. But they passed it down to their generations of kids, and their homes are worth millions of dollars now. Just imagine flipping $7,500 to $1 million some dollars right now. I don't even think you can get a bicycle. You can't get a bag of ice for $7,500. Anything to live, I don't know what you can get to live in for $7,500 if it ain't got 300,000 miles on it. Like, that's the sad truth. But make sure if y'all knew as well that y'all hit these three dots and y'all hit that like button. We got 1,100 people. We got 1,100 people in here right now, man. Y'all make sure that y'all hit that like button if y'all new. Right here, three dots. Three dots. We gonna get lit, man. Let's rank number one. Let's go to break. Let's rank number one in this live stream.
The birth of rock and roll. We launched monkeys and men into space. This is when the Mustangs and Corvettes first came out. Our high ended with the assassination of John F. Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963. The high is not a high for everyone, of course. America still had a segregated South. Homosexuality was illegal and considered a mental disorder.
Somebody said, how do we know you're telling the truth? You don't. That's why it's up to you to make your own conclusions, do your own research, and figure it out.
The high is a period of conformity. The age of nonconformity and of social justice begins during the Awakening, our passionate era. During the Awakening, we had Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement, acid, Vietnam protests and Vietnam itself, the women's liberation movement, Stonewall and the gay rights movement. Great movies, great music. This is when the first Macintosh computer came out. The Awakening is a time of increasing individualism. This second turning, this awakening, ended with the re-election of Ronald Reagan in 1984. Things get messy during the third turning, during the unraveling. We got the fall of Soviet communism and the beginning of the Russian gangster state. The greatest musicians of the time sang about violence and decay in their deteriorating cities. The LA riots, OJ, the bombing of Bosnia, and the Columbine high school shootings on the same day. September 11th, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Our unraveling ended with the financial crisis of 2008. The fascinating fact about this book is that it was written during the last third turning, published in 1997. But the book predicts now, what's happening now in this fourth turning. And what's happening now is right on schedule. 80 years ago, in the last fourth turning, America had a Great Depression, then World War II. 80 years before that, the Civil War. 80 years before that, the Revolutionary War. Now it's our turn to save the country. So where do you fit into all this? What's your role? It depends when you were born. Each generation, each cohort, tends to embody a specific archetype. An archetype that will move the society towards the next high. Each generation's archetype is the characteristic that will define the generation in its prime, in midlife. The boomer archetype is the prophet. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are boomers and prophets. Both predicted that one day everyone, not just big corporations and governments, would own a computer. Gates even predicted a crisis like COVID-19 5 years beforehand.
Because he runs the shit.
The writers of this book are boomers and prophets. Gen X is the nomad generation. The quintessential Gen Xer, Elon Musk, builds things that move us from one place to another.
More than that.
Rockets, electric cars, hyperloops,
Neuralinks,
nomadic devices. But the millennials, raised during the unraveling, will emerge as the hero generation during this crisis. These are the Parkland High students, the frontline hospital workers, and Malala Yousafzai. The book says millennials will be the World War II heroes of our history block. We don't know what Gen Z will do, but they will be an artist generation. From them will emerge the next Bill Withers, Toni Morrison, or Bob Dylan, all born during the last crisis, all from an artist generation.
I want to be that.
The history block before ours ended with World War II and began with the Civil War 80 years prior. The history block before that ended with the Civil War
You'll never
and
see this in
began
school, by the way,
with the
guys.
end
They won't
of the
educate you.
Revolutionary
They're
War
fucking educated
80
minds,
years
not
prior.
just yell on the camera. Teach us
Every
this
80
fucking
years or
substance.
so, something big comes along and changes everything. And now, we're at the end of our history block, right in the middle of our crisis. We're in the process of changing our world again. The authors of The Fourth Turning tell us that these crises are like forest fires, unpleasant but necessary. They clear the woods for new growth. As we work towards our next high, this crisis will tilt the playing field away from the old and towards the young, they tell us. But the victory is not guaranteed. We will, each of us, need to rise to the occasion during this crisis. We will need to develop and fortify our virtues as we pursue a greener pasture.
The point is here, guys, it's very simple. We are in the fourth turning.
Pretty much like he said, it's pretty simple. Allegedly, we are in the fourth turning. I mean, if it happens, it happens. And I mean, we got until 2008 to see what really goes on, if this is valid information or not. I mean, I feel like everybody can just sit back and just watch. Hold on, let me do it like that. I feel like everybody really can just sit back and watch history, I guess, repeats itself. But I mean, I hear a lot of times that history repeats itself. So it's just a matter if this is one of them situations and if this is real or not. So, well, how do y'all feel like? Y'all feel like something's going to go on? I'm not going to lie. Like, with that guy Putin being saying, like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just too much stuff going on. It made me feel like we're going to be in another war. It's just a matter if it happens or not. You see what I'm saying? So y'all let me know how y'all feel about that.